trigger happy and I give less than a fuck. Love me or hate me, I'ma show enough, rip shit up. It's Mr. Nothing, nice on a mic stand. Mic in the left and the zest in my right hand. I took a puff, had enough now, hold up. If that was Indo, niggas getting rolled up.
What's going on, folks? So this is Acid Roots. I'm going to review the King Gordy debut album, The Entity. So a little bit about this project. So King Gordy was a rapper from Detroit, like Eminem and Royce the 5'9" and some of them cats, like Bizarre, D12, those type folks. But really, an interesting thing about King Gordy, well, he was a battle rapper for one thing, and he also popped up in the movie 8 Mile, the Eminem movie 8 Mile, and he was one of the battle rappers in that. But the thing about King Gordy was he was actually signed to the Bass Brothers' record label, and that's the Bass Brothers were early collaborators with Eminem. They worked on at least the Slim Shady LP and Marshall Mathers LP, and then Devil's Night by D12. So they were really collaborative with like his early days, and I'd probably throw Slim Shady EP and Infinite in there. Definitely Infinite. The Bass Brothers record label was the label that Infinite came out on. King Gordy was signed to that label, and Eminem and the Bass Brothers helped executive produce this project, which is pretty awesome. Just for a number of reasons, because for one thing, King Gordy is a frequent collaborator with Bizarre of D12, and this is a horrorcore album that's basically damn near on a mainstream label. Now, it's not on Eminem's Shady Records, but it's the closest thing, considering that Bass Brothers were frequent collaborators with Eminem, especially in those early days. And to me, this is a special extra treat just because it's one of the last projects that still has the Bass Brothers after the Marshall Mathers LP and Devil's Night. So it's kind of, they didn't really work on Eminem's show that much, and they definitely didn't work on Encore or anything further for the most part. There might have been like one or two things thrown in there, but for the most part, after like Devil's Night, that was kind of it. So this is one of the last real Eminem Bass Brothers type things. And King Gordy is pretty awesome. He has a real shrill voice, real shriekish, kind of loud and violent kind of sounding voice. He collaborates extremely well with Bizarre of D12, and he makes some pretty awesome horrorcore music. I definitely feel like it's top notch in a lot of ways. And the thing I like about this project is, like I was saying, this is a horrorcore album, but it's kind of almost brought to like mainstream light. It's about as close as it gets, besides like Eminem's Relapse. There's actually a single off this project, and it has Eminem production on here. So that's kind of the thing. There's a number of treats about this project that really make it kick ass. So the single was called The Pain, and this kind of sounds like a Tech 9 song. I felt like the production was real kind of ravenous and pretty hellish sounding. I definitely like how that turned out. Really had like a creepy piano, sounded like something real kind of shrill, like off of Tech 9's KOD or something. And basically, everything was pretty much made to go in terms of something that might have been able to have like light radio play, minus maybe not on mainstream radio, but just light kind of rap radio play, minus like the chorus. The chorus really sounded like something of Tech 9 in his early days, which was just kind of a lot of thumping around. But it was good. I don't have any complaints about this song. I like it, minus the fact that, you know, maybe the hook is not quite as... but really, I mean, this was King Gordy's first album, and I don't expect like, you know, like Trey Songz type numbers and that type of stuff. So it's like, whatever. It's a great song. And Nightmares had a music video for it to kind of talk about that song. This is a real thumping and plodding kind of song, real carnivorous, real rageous and outrageous and that type stuff. And I would have to say, to me, this was definitely a song, had I listened to it back in the day, would have been a great song to get smashed to. It's just an overall great party starter. Kind of, like I said, very thumping. I almost made this song an almost song for what I was kind of on the fence about, but I realized it's just too much. This is really one of the songs that when the party gets started, this is one of the ones that's like where it's in full swing and you're really going to kind of want to get going with it. Now, the production is not quite as classic as I would have liked, but it's good for a horrorcore mainstream album, and that's definitely sufficient. It's just kind of the fact that compared to the Pain, it's not quite as good, but it has like it's kind of like a shrill, kind of creeping, but not quite. It's probably like a B plus beat or a B minus beat more so than something that it probably could have been. I think it could have been a notch or two better, but like I said, when you're in the moment, it's tougher to notice that. So, and by that I mean getting crunk, dancing, that type stuff, But so yeah, to talk about the rest of this, number of songs on here, really. The Bass Brothers, I know I talked about how well they were with Eminem, but they really do not handle enough of the production on this project as well as they do when Eminem helps also. Eminem helps at least 4 times, and I'll go ahead and list those songs for you. So he helps on Nightmares, The Pain, When Darkness Falls, and Pass Me a Lighter. And to me, these are 4 of the best beats on the project. Pass Me a Lighter has a real kind of creeping and just overall surreal and kind of haunting kind of beat on there. I mean, you have to listen to it a bit, but really as it plods along, it really kind of gets like a real kind of ominous kind of feel towards it. And Louis Resto, who collaborates with Dr. Dre, kind of co-collaborates with this also. So you have like 2 co-Dr. Dre collaborators that help at least 3 or 4 times. When Darkness Falls, kind of sounds like a top-notch horrorcore beat. Really kind of, that's another kind of looming and ominous kind of sounding one. Like I said, the Pain has that piano-like song, and but to talk about some of these that the Bass Brothers didn't handle well, I felt like Fight was just kind of like a retread of like fight music from Devil's Night, and just didn't quite do it quite as well. It was kind of meh. And I didn't like No Lights. I mean, that was trying to be kind of like an Eminem story type song. I mean, King Gordy's just talking about his bad upbringing and that type stuff, and I don't know. I mean, it was just too much family, not enough I mean, Eminem handles those kind of moments better where he kind of tells a story and shows off that things weren't necessarily good for him. We Violent, well, yeah, We Violent and a bunch of other these, like Nobody Hates Nothing, Fatastic Four. I mean, there were a lot of beats that could have. I mean, I get the concept behind it because horrorcore back in these days was relatively new. I mean, Eminem really wasn't doing horrorcore that much on back in 2003. So really, King Gordy kind of had a head start on some of this, and Bizarre really hadn't fleshed this out yet either. So it was kind of underneath the impression that King Gordy really did a decent job for the fact that this was kind of almost a mainstream push, but the fact that maybe they just didn't know where to really go with it. Because I can't think of like Esham and ICP and some of those type folks, like Necro and some of those folks. I can't really think Tech Nine even at the time. I mean, a lot of them, the singles that were typically promoted as far as like horrorcore singles were just kind of real kind of awkward, and like songs like Einstein by Tech Nine and some of the songs off of like the Amazing Jekyll Brothers. I mean, a lot of these they just didn't quite have the airplay as far. I mean, they were just mostly cult classics in a lot of that, and I definitely feel like the Pain from this album has that. And there's a number of songs like Pass Me a Lighter, Nightmares, and Time to Die with Bizarre. That to me has a fantastic beat. That's probably one of the best beats on here. I'm surprised it wasn't produced by Eminem and the Bass Brothers, but that it says some producer called 01, but for what it is, that's a fantastic beat. Bizarre, I definitely felt like that's one of the best songs, and easily proves that Bizarre and King Gordy have some true stellar chemistry as far as that goes. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and list the 6 out of 13 songs that I recommend to you. So I'm gonna say like Time to Die. Yeah, Time to Die with Bizarre, The Pain, which was the single, Stress, which is a pretty cool rap rock song and has a brilliant chorus on there. When Darkness Falls, Pass Me a Lighter, and Nightmares. So those are the 6 ones I recommend. I've talked about enough of these to the point where you can kind of learn about them a bunch. But really, the weakness to this project is just the fact that there's not enough like creepy beats like Pass Me a Lighter, The Pain, and Time to Die. And those are some of the best moments. They needed way more like this. I kind of felt like because horrorcore was kind of in its earlier and more growing pain stages, it didn't quite know what to do. Eminem, I don't even know if Eminem himself was really quite sure of what to handle with this sort of thing, because he did a sufficient job with the beats he did do, but I would have figured that he probably would have wanted to give the project more. It's just odd that, and especially he didn't show up for a verse either. I mean, really, Eminem in 2003, if he would have been on here, I think that he probably would have given this, had Eminem helped further with this, he would have given this way more exposure than would probably King Gordy might have known what to do with. But just to kind of say, like, I'm losing my train of thought here. The concept behind it is the fact that the horrorcore needed to be fleshed out more, but it just didn't quite have like the accuracy of trying to do that. It's not, I want to say it's not lackluster, but it's kind of borderline mediocre, and that's the problem, because there's just not enough. Like, there are moments that showcase skill set extremely well, but then there are also ones that feel kind of amateurish, mediocre, and lukewarm, and just overall tepid in a lot of ways. And that's kind of the problem. The Bass Brothers, without Eminem's help, kind of fall prey to that also. And a lot of these other producers, minus maybe once or twice, do not really have the capabilities of withholding this project. So for what it is, like horrorcore in 2003, great idea, was definitely an early bird compared to what some of the stuff that happened later on in the late 2000s and 2010s. But a lot of the producers here didn't know what to do with it, and King Gordy was still kind of wet behind the ears to really flesh this out to the point where it could have been like a classic horrorcore album rather than just, admirable. And, by that we mean earnestly admirable. So that's kind of the thing. So I'm going to give this album, me liking 6 out of 14. I'm going to give this album a 4.5 out of 10. I'll give it a 5 out of 10 just because I respect the stuff on this project. I definitely felt like there was some good stuff here, but it is in no way, shape, or form anywhere near a classic. Some folks might say, oh, this is a horrorcore heralded one, this is one, but it's not a classic because there's just too much clunkers on here to be anywhere close to that. And there needed to probably be at least one more single as well, something like that to kind of say. But 5 out of 10, really I should give it a 4.5. I'm going to give it a 5 because I liked it. The social score, I'll give a 4 out of 10 just because it had one good single and a decent music video, decent song for a music video, but it could have used, I know for a horrorcore album, just the fact that it had a single at all really says something, but I don't know. For 2003, that's stellar enough, but that's kind of the concept, is it just left me itching for something. And definitely Eminem could have at least been on a chorus or something like that. Definitely would have helped. Bizarre could have shown up a second time. Plenty of situations like that that could have manifested, but that's kind of the idea behind it. So the future, really, I don't know what King Gordy's been up to. I look at that concept. King Gordy's been relatively quiet, and I would say, can this record be topped? It definitely can. I think I remember giving last year, the Great American Weed Smoker like a 10 out of 10. So he's done better than this. And even if he doesn't do horrorcore, he has a lot of good versatility points that he's shown that he can do. So it's just like, you definitely want this. I want to purchase this album. I'm just kind of hoping that I can get it on CD. That's why I'm trying to cover some of these, is hopefully this will get it more coverage to where I can own this sort of stuff and respect it even further.